Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In Genoa City, death never arrives quietly. It lingers in hospital corridors, hides behind whispered boardroom threats, and breathes in the spaces between enemies who have unfinished business. Lately, that shadow has grown longer, darker, more suffocating than usual, and everyone can feel it. The anxiety began the moment word spread about Jill's health setback. At first, it was only a rumor, an overheard conversation, a tense expression during a phone call, a cancelled meeting that Jill Abbott would never have missed in her prime. But when the truth surfaced that her heart condition had worsened, Genoa City shifted. Billy tried to brush it off publicly. Privately, he was unraveling. He had always believed Jill was indestructible. She had survived corporate wars, romantic disasters, betrayals, and family feuds that would have buried anyone else. Jill wasn't just a survivor, she was a force. The idea that her heart, of all things, might betray her felt impossible. But impossible didn't mean untruth. Jill refused to show weakness. Even while doctors warned her about stress, she was still strategizing from afar, still maneuvering through corporate chaos as if nothing had changed. Yet there was something different in her voice lately, a softness, a reflective tone that hadn't been there before. It scared Billy more than any diagnosis. Meanwhile, whispers circulated about the show's upcoming milestone, Jess Walton's anniversary. A celebration was coming, a recognition, a tribute. It didn't feel like the prelude to a funeral. Still, in soap operas, milestones and tragedy sometimes walk hand in hand. Would they really let Jill's heart give out? Would Genoa City wake up to devastating news? Billy couldn't shake the dread, neither could Lily. Even Victor, who had clashed with Jill countless times, seemed unusually restrained when her name came up. The great Victor Newman knew the value of legacy. He also understood that when pillars fall, entire structures tremble. But while Jill's health hung in the balance, another danger was rising, one far more immediate, far more violent. Sienna Backhall. She had entered Genoa City like a breath of fresh air, vibrant and fearless, determined to carve her own path. Noah believed in her. He saw something genuine beneath her ambition, something worth fighting for. But others weren't so convinced. There was an instability to Sienna's presence, a feeling that she had stepped into a war she didn't fully understand. Loving a Newman came with consequences, enemies, history. And history was about to resurface in the most explosive way possible. Matt Clark. The name alone was enough to make certain people go still. Matt had never truly disappeared. He was the kind of man who thrived in darkness, who waited for the perfect moment to strike. His past vendettas against the Newmans had left scars. Prison had not reformed him, it had hardened him. Now word was spreading that he was circling back. Nick sensed it first, a familiar tension, financial moves that didn't make sense, a sudden disruption in one of Newman Enterprises' overseas ventures. It was subtle but deliberate. Victor sensed it too. "You don't return to Genoa City unless you have a plan," Victor said coldly, "and Matt Clark always has a plan." The question wasn't whether Matt would make a move. It was who would suffer first. Sienna, unknowingly, was standing at the edge of the storm. If Matt wanted to hurt the Newmans, he would target what they loved, and Noah's heart was an obvious pressure point. Sienna wasn't a corporate titan or a strategic mastermind, she was vulnerable, accessible, dangerous to love. Noah refused to believe she was in real danger. He insisted Matt wouldn't go that far, but Nick had seen enough revenge plots in his lifetime to know better. "Men like Matt don't stop," Nick warned him, "they escalate." And escalation in Genoa City often ended in death. At the same time, another possibility loomed, one no one wanted to consider. What if Matt wasn't the executioner? What if he was the one marked for destruction? Victor had made a calculated mistake once before, turning Matt over to the authorities instead of finishing the threat permanently. Victor believed in control, in strategy, but regret had begun to creep in. Perhaps a jail cell had never been enough. As long as Matt breathed, he was a threat to the Newman legacy. Nick felt it too, the rage simmering beneath his composure. If Matt hurt Noah, if he so much as laid a finger on Sienna, Nick didn't know what he might do. And that was the most terrifying part. Because sometimes the next death in Genoa City isn't caused by an enemy. It's caused by someone protecting family. As tension mounted, Jill's health crisis, Sienna's vulnerability, and Matt's impending return began to intertwine like threads in a noose tightening around the city. Billy found himself distracted, torn between corporate battles and the growing fear of losing his mother. Lily watched him spiral, knowing that grief, or even the threat of it, could push Billy into reckless territory. Meanwhile, Audra observed everything. She noticed the cracks in Noah's confidence, she saw the instability in Sienna's position, and somewhere beneath her calculated exterior, old feelings stirred. If Sienna were to fall, where would that leave Noah? Opportunity and tragedy have always shared a thin line in Genoa City. And somewhere in the shadows, Matt Clark was preparing to cross it. The only question left was this: who would fall first? The night everything shifted began quietly. Too quietly. Sienna was alone when the power flickered. At first she blamed the storm rolling across Genoa City. Thunder cracked outside, rattling windows. She tried calling Noah, but the call failed. A strange unease crept up her spine. Somewhere across town, Nick's instincts were screaming. He couldn't explain it. He had been reviewing security reports when something felt off, an interruption in the surveillance grid near Sienna's building. Minor, brief, but deliberate. "Dad," Noah asked when Nick showed up at his door unannounced. "We need to check on her." They arrived just as the lights went out completely. Inside, Sienna froze at the sound of glass breaking. Matt stepped out of the darkness like a ghost resurrected. "You really thought I was done?" he asked, voice cold, almost amused. Sienna's pulse thundered in her ears. She had underestimated the hatred fueling this man. She had underestimated what loving a Newman meant. Across the room, her phone lay useless. Matt wasn't there for conversation. He was there to send a message. But fate had other plans. The door burst open. Nick and Noah. What followed was chaos, shouting, struggle, fury unleashed in a confined space. Years of resentment exploded in seconds. Noah lunged first, rage overtaking caution. Nick tried to pull him back, but Matt fought like a cornered animal. A gun appeared. No one was entirely sure whose hand it was in first. The shot rang out, deafening. Silence followed. When the smoke cleared, someone lay bleeding on the floor. For a split second, Noah believed it was Sienna. Then he saw her trembling in the corner, alive. Matt Clark lay motionless. Nick stared down at him, chest heaving. Had it been self-defense? Had it been inevitable? Sirens wailed in the distance. Victor arrived soon after, his expression unreadable as he surveyed the aftermath. "It should have ended long ago," Victor murmured. But death is never simple in Genoa City. While Matt was rushed to the hospital, clinging to life, Jill collapsed miles away during a tense phone call. The stress had finally caught up with her. Billy received the call within minutes of each other, Matt shot, Jill critical. Two lives hanging by threads. At the hospital, hallways filled with Newmans and Abbotts alike, old rivalries paused in the face of mortality. Doctors worked frantically. Hours passed. When the surgeon finally emerged, every breath in the corridor stopped. "Mr. Clark survived surgery," the doctor said, "but his condition is unstable." Relief and frustration collided. He was alive. Still a threat. Still unfinished. Across another wing, Billy sat beside Jill's bed, gripping her hand. "Don't you dare leave," he whispered. "Not now, not before we celebrate you." Machines beeped steadily. For a moment, Jill's eyes fluttered open. "You always were dramatic," she murmured weakly. Billy laughed through tears. The crisis had not claimed her. Not yet. By morning, Genoa City understood one thing clearly. Death had brushed against them, but chosen to wait. Matt remained under guard. If he survived fully, prison awaited him again, but rumors spread that he wouldn't make it that easy. Revenge plots rarely end with hospital beds and handcuffs. Noah struggled with what had happened. He had seen how close he'd come to losing Sienna. The fragility of life had shaken him. Sienna, too, felt changed. Loving Noah meant living in perpetual danger. Was she strong enough for that reality? Audra watched from a distance. Opportunity lingered once more. Victor stood in his office, staring out over the city he had spent decades controlling. Next time, he said quietly to Nick, we don't hesitate. Nick didn't respond. Because deep down he knew the truth. As long as enemies exist, as long as love creates vulnerability, as long as ambition fuels desperation, another death will come. Maybe it will be Matt. Maybe it will be someone no one expects. But Genoa City never stays peaceful for long. For now, Jill lives. Matt breathes. Sienna survives. But the shadow remains. And somewhere in that shadow, fate is still deciding who will pay the ultimate price next.